four of us were all just home brewers. We'd all brewed beer by ourselves, but only a few of us had done mead. We decided, because of the expense of the project, to group up and do it as, you know, a few of us. And the first batch that we made, we really enjoyed, so we just kind of kept going from there. And through the pressure from some friends and family, we decided to go professional with it and become a licensed production meadery. Mead at its core is just honey, water, and yeast fermented out, but it can expand exponentially from there. Fruits, spices, pretty much anything can go into mead. A lot of times, the most distinguishing factor is the honey characteristic to it. Much like grapes can have their own varietal, reds, whites, monovarietal honeys are so incredibly unique. I can maybe identify by taste 20 or 30 of them off the go, but there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I think the industry is really cool because there's just so many new ideas, so much new growth, and just so much learning. I mean, the mead industry in the past 10 years on the science side of it has exploded exponentially. I mean, we've learned so much about the fermentation process, what things can be added to do better fermentations or to take, you know, meads to different heights. So the mead making day is a lot simpler than a beer brewing day. We only have just a few short steps. Most of our prep for mead making day revolves around ensuring that we've got a clean and sterile environment for that mead to ferment. There's nothing worse than putting thousands of dollars into something, doing all the work, spending all the time on it, only for it to go south on you partway through. But a standard mead making day really just involves a few short steps. We take our raw honey, we take our water, and all we do is we blend those and we move them into a larger tank for the fermentation. For that fermentation, we take a lab-grade wine yeast. So we buy from a few sources, Scott Labs, Y Yeast, and a few other reputable sources. We get it in a dry yeast. We rehydrate that with water, some nutrient blends, and then we pull some of that honey and water mixture into that, both to feed the yeast and to acclimate the yeast to what it's going to be living in for the next couple of weeks. And then when it comes to the fermentation side of it, I would say is where most of the work comes in. So we do a lot more logging. Mead, contrary to beer and wine, doesn't have a lot of the nutrient sources available to it. Honey is a blend of different sugars made up from whatever the bees are finding, and those blends generally don't have nitrogen or other nutrients that are needed to have a healthy fermentation. So generally we look at what we're fermenting. If we're doing stuff with fruit, they're going to require a little bit less in the way of nutrients. If they're traditionals, they're going to require a little bit more care. And then we just watch it throughout its fermentation. So the fermentation, there's generally a lot more sugars that are gone through with a mead compared to with beer or wine. It's just because a lot of the meads right now have both a primary fermentation, but they also finish sweet. So there's a lot more care that needs to be taken in that. But generally it's just that simple. It's honey, water, and yeast, and you're done. So what we're doing here is we're actually taking a down stem and pumping it through a centrifugal pump, which is essentially just creating suction, pulling the product from that side, and then pulling it through into our bottom port here to introduce as little oxygen as possible while transferring the final mead off of its final sediment before we get to bottling. We start with our reservoir of finished product. The draw hose will just sit in the bottom of that, and we'll draw up through here to this hose pipe here, and it will feed down into our bottle. So once we attach the bottle and the motor's running, it will pull the liquid up through, and it will fill here. You will see a red line. That's my indicator as to the fill line. When it gets to there and the bottle is full, any more liquid coming in will be diverted through this hose here into the back fill tank, which is just an overflow tank. The whole system is vacuum operated. So again, we are purging and removing oxygen from the final product to make sure that that product has a good longevity and It doesn't taste like wet cardboard. Every time that we see a downturn and we see, hurdles, we also see a very bright light at the end of the tunnel, and we say, let's just try it. If it fails, then it fails. If not, then we keep pushing forward. And every single time we've made the leap and we've found the light at the end of the tunnel, and we find the new problems that come with that, and we adapt and grow. So I would say the thing that keeps me coming back is definitely the continued find of treasure each and every time, but also there's a personal love of creation, and I've not in 4 years' time found any lack of that. Actually, we generally have a book of ideas that we just want to get around to, but we just don't have enough time. So there's projects that are yet to be done that we've not even touched. So just a lot left to be explored.